Welcome. I have been weaving a raven's tail robe and using Nahin techniques as well as the classic geometric pattern techniques. And I welcome you back. In addition to weaving and demonstrating these techniques, I want to talk about the cultural use of our robes. I will be weaving the same things day after day because that's the way it happens. It takes time. And but I'd like to keep videoing even though I'm weaving the same techniques. And I'm hoping that I can share with you stories of how we use these robes in the past. And I've been researching this subject for about 2 decades, almost 20 years, and hopefully I will eventually have a book published. But okay, so I talked about how our earlier tradition was that the chiefs and the high status people had the tradition of wearing 2 robes. And then yesterday I talked about how I thought using 2 robes could save a chief's life. So if you want to hear that, you can listen to the previous video. But and today I'd like to talk to you about a story. I'll tell you a story that was collected here in Masset that talks about the importance of robes. And so it's a story that was in the John Swanton book of the Masset dialect, Haida Myths, Masset dialect. So I'll start weaving and telling you that story. So I will be finishing up a row, and that'll be an important thing that I don't know if I've shown you in a video yet. So I'm going along. My rhythm is over 4 blue, and then 2 black, 4 blue, 2 black, and then however it runs out here. Okay, so there were 2 chiefs. There was Hyas at Hyelen and Lucaslis from Kung. And Lucaslis was over there in the village, Hyas's village. He was the town chief there. And that's up near Toe Hill, North Beach area in Haida Gwaii. So Lucaslis came to Hyas's village to gamble. So he was there quite a long time gambling. And he kept winning. He won and he won, and he pretty much won everything of Hyas. And Hyas had a knife around his neck, and he'd run out of things to gamble for or with, and so he wagered his knife, and Hyas lost. So pretty soon they were like, well, let's stop. So Lucaslis says, sure, let's stop. So then he gets in his canoe ready to go back home. Well, he's expecting that knife to get given to him because he'd won it, but it didn't get given to him. So he figured he had enough and he wasn't going to cause anything at that time. So he went home to Kung, and his clanspeople said, well, how'd you do? And he said, well, I did fine, except for, and he talked about how Hyas didn't give him that night. So they were like, well, what should we do about that? You know, we can't let that pass. So, so they said, so anyway, Lucaslis said, I'll burn a likeness in one of the gambling sticks that I use in my kit. And every morning I'm going to say, Wah Hyas, when I gamble. So whenever he gambled at home, he'd throw out that stick that had a burned and carved likeness into him, and he would say, "Wah Hayas." And the chief Hayas heard what was happening, and he didn't like it. So he gathered his people together and he said, "Hey, this is what's happening. This is what Lucasos is saying." And let's see. Sometimes that's one of the reasons why it's really important not to compress these warps, because then they're hard to find. You definitely want to make sure you're picking up the right one. Like I just had to find the correct warp right there. Okay, so Hayas gathers his people together and he says, "What should I do? This is terrible. This is not good for my name, my prestige." So his clan members say, "Okay, we're going to go over to Kung with 10 canoes, and we're going to destroy and throw out 10 boxes of Uligan grease." Uligan grease was a trade item, so it was really expensive. So they were going to destroy boxes of oil, and then they were also going to destroy the tinnas. They were going to bring 10 tinnas, and they were going to throw them into the water. So then they said, "We're going to prepare by learning songs. We're going to make new songs, and we're going to collect all of these items to destroy and give away." And then one of the other important things that they did was to weave robes to get ready to look magnificent. And so the women wove Lucasos a robe, Hayas a robe, and then also Hayas had a sister. Her name was Sadago, and so she wove her own robe. And on those robes, they put figures. So for Chief Hayas, they said that he had 2 figures on his robe. And with his sister, Sadago, she had also 2 figures on her robe. And they described the figure for his sister's robe as a beaver. So I'm an eagle, and my clan is eagle, beaver, frog, and I have a couple of other clans. But anyway, so I know that anytime someone has any clothing that has a beaver on it, they would be eagle. So, and we also know that Hayas is eagle. He was a member of the Stostis clan, I believe, which is an eagle clan. So anyway, she has a beaver on her robe. So the songs are ready. The boxes of oil are there, and they're ready for the confrontation. So Hayas he and his people get into 10 canoes, and off they go to Kung, because they're going to confront Lucasos. Well, Lucasos heard all about the preparation of Hayas and his clan, so he has to be ready. So what he does is he carves an eagle. He carves a pole with an eagle, and it's set up so that he'll lift the tail, and out will fall a bunch of mountain goat wool. So I just want to stop and just say that I swung the blacks to the back, then I took the 2 blue, did a couple of twists to tuck and secure the blacks to the back, and then I grabbed these 3 and then the side cord, and then I did the knot, and it leaves the fringe, and then I'll go over to the other side and put fringe on when I start that row. Okay, and so we'll go over here and start another row. So I'm back here at the beginning on the left side, and I see that I have to move this braid. Now this braid that is between the black border and this thinner blue border is a raven's tail 3-strand. So there's always 2 yarns in the front and then 1 yarn in the back. And when you switch, you're going to bring the one from the back forward. So you have 3 forward. You take the top one and it goes to the left of both its partners. There's no weaving between the middle, the top, like you do with these ones. Okay, every time you do a fringe on that other side, you're going to want to do a fringe on your left side. So I take the loop and I put that loop behind the 2 side cords, and I make sure the tails are even. And then I swing the tails through that loop and slide it up. So then with these weavers, I enclose those 2 side cords and enclose the 3 blue warps. And then I'm going to attend to the length by slip knotting. So the Lucaslis here is about Hyas coming to this show of power, show of wealth, the Sangata. And he prepares by carving that eagle and stuffing it full of mountain goat wool and then releasing lifting the tail of the eagle and releasing the mountain goat wool. So that was his preparation. So here comes the 10 canoes, Hyas's 10 canoes to go to Kung. And so there, when you go to another village, it's quite a ceremonial thing. You have to show respect for the people of that village, and so what usually happens, and even today, when people go from a lot of these canoe journeys, there has to be respect for the host, and so so they were going to go over to Kung, and they stopped before they turned their final corner, and they got dressed. They dress up. So so they figured out a way they were trying to embarrass, they wanted a good start to this confrontation, and they wanted to immediately embarrass Lucaslis. So they were going to fool him. So what they did was they brought up a common man and they dressed him up, but not too fine. They just, and they put planks between their 2 canoes so that the chief could stand on those planks. So as they went into the village to make this beginning of this confrontation, up stands this person, and he's not finely dressed at all. So Lucaslus thinks it's the chief. He's dressed in his. He must have. There must have been something that he was wearing that indicated that he was chief, or he was that he was Hyas. So Lucaslus yells out, "Look how commonly dressed Hyas is!" And then Hyas stands up in all his glory with his new robe and his beautiful regalia. And then everybody there, Lucaslus has become embarrassed because he got fooled. So that was one mark for Hyas. So so that started off things bad, and okay, I just want to make sure I'm doing things right here. Okay, and so so that was started out bad for Lucaslus. So then they start singing. Hyas and his people start singing songs, and they start throwing out the boxes full of oil, and they start throwing out, and every time they do something like that, they sing. So they have a song. And in the story it says Lucaslus had no songs. He hadn't prepared songs. So so they both throw out the things and destroy these things, and Lucaslus has the mountain goat coming out of the back end of the carved pole, and at the end of the end of the story really kind of leaves you hanging. It doesn't really tell you if who won. So it says that the mountain goat will eventually ran out. So what makes me think is that Lucaslus didn't win, for them to say in the story that his wool ran out. Okay, so Lucaslus had an earring in his ear, and Hyas had earrings in his ear, and he said to his people, "When I get there, I'm going to face my chiefs with my earring adorned ear, but I'm going to face my enemies. I'm going to face Lucaslus with my unadorned ear." So in that one instance of the story, he talks about, okay, now I have to stop talking because I have to check this. 2 blacks. I get 2 blacks here. And then 3 blues. Okay. So that's another part of the story I really liked, is the fact that of this this passage in the story, which was important enough to be part of the story, is that he was insulting. He was insulting that chief by facing him with an unadorned earring. So that was very interesting too. But another part of this story that I think talks about the cultural use of the robes is that the robe was an important, prestigious item, and it was important to appear in all of their glory when they had these confrontations. and their appearance was very, very important, and what they wore was important, and how they wore it was important. So, there. So because the story is one of my favorites and it has some important concepts in it, I'm going to read it to you so that I don't mess up some of the important things. Okay, so Hyas said to his friends, it will be best for me to give away a great many things on account of him. And all his friends, the chiefs, agreed. We'll go in canoes. All of you shall go with me. We will go. Okay, here I was wrong in telling you it was 10 canoes. He says, we will go in 5 canoes. And when my property is all ready, I will also learn a song. When this is done, we will go. So he spoke to his friends, and he had a blanket made. The women put figures on it. Close to the bottom were put Git-el Gadon, which according to Swanton was an unidentified figure or an unidentified crest. Above was the representation of a black whale. There were only 2 figures on the blanket, and he also fixed his hat. The ravens were on opposite sides of his hat, and at the base of the tall dancing hat sat a frog, and his hat was finished. And his sister also made her blanket. Her blanket had the figure of a beaver upon it. It was big, and the 2 ravens on his hat had starfishes in their bills. And his sister's blanket was also finished. And Hyas had in one ear a long earring made of a strung abalone shell. But on the side where he was going to speak to Lycaslus, he was not going to wear one. And when the chiefs and the chief's sons spoke to him, he was going to turn the side on which he wore the earring towards them. So that is one, what was said in this story. So just the fact that when they first approached Kung, he had a common person dressed up as him, and between the 2 canoes, they put a plank between the 2 canoes, and this person stood up as if he was chief. And Lycaslus was like, look how commonly dressed the chief is. And Hyas then stands up with his beautiful new robe, and so Lycaslus right off the bat had been embarrassed by his mistaking that other person as chief. And then the giveaway, and then the pole carved as an eagle, and the wool coming down out of the eagle's behind. So what I like about that story is that there's specific places in Haida Gwaii where it happened, specific chiefs. Like Hyas is the chief we all know about. I'm not sure Lycaslus, like I said, he may not have been chief. He may have been a nephew of a chief, but he did have influence. Anyway, and so what you wore was important. And not only does it declare your status, but it has messages. Like when he had the adorned ear. So there's a robe in the Harvard Peabody Museum there in Cambridge, and it's called the Swift robe. And when you see it, it's divided in half. One side is one pattern, and the other side is another pattern. And when a chief wears that robe, it would be divided down his back. So if he was to face you one way, you'd think he was wearing one robe. And then if he was to switch his shoulders, he would be wearing another robe, design. You'd think he was wearing another robe of another design. And so in just the turn of your shoulders, you could make a declaration give a message. And so the robes were made for many reasons. And I'll continue to talk about the history and demonstrate. So thank you so much for joining me today. Bye.